Chad, how old were you when you knew you wanted to be an actor?
I knew I wanted to be an actor at a very young age. I was always making movies with the video camera that was like this big back in the day. And always, putting on skits for my parents and whoever would watch. And then as I got into like high school and stuff, I wanted to be a cop, like my dad. I wanted to be a police officer, so I went to the college and signed up to be a police officer, the whole 9 yards. And then they were auditioning for a play in high school, and a buddy to me goes, hey, you should audition. I'm like, I don't want to audition. No way, no way. He's like, come on, auditions for guys and dolls. So I audition, and I'm not a very good singer. I'm a terrible singer, in fact, but I got a small part. And then I got on stage, and then I realized then that was what I was good at. I'm not a sports guy. I was not a football player in high school, Acting was my thing. And then once I locked onto that, I knew at a very young age that that's what I was going to do. Nobody was going to tell me different. And looking back 22 years, later, I'm really thankful that it happened, because it doesn't happen for a lot of people here that are trying to break into this crazy industry. So.
That's interesting. So, because I know a lot of people that come from like families with law enforcement, and usually there's a long line of them, and a lot of people are there. When you drive by, let's say, a police officer, does it ever register in your mind like, that could be me right there? Had it been a couple change of events?
No, because I don't have that inside of me. I'm not a guy who's going to take down another guy. I'm not a guy that can pull a gun and make a life and death decision. With the exception of a few bad apples, I have nothing but respect for the law enforcement and what they do. I think they're true heroes. Whenever I see a cop, I think of my dad, and I think of him putting himself out there in harm's way and helping people and being respectful to people and treating everybody with respect. So that's what I think about when I see police officers, and I'm grateful that we have them. So.
Did you feel any pressure though to take another course? Or they were supportive?
My parents were 100% supportive of me from the very beginning, because they saw that just this was what I wanted to do, this is what I was good at. And a lot of actors that I've talked to didn't have parental support, which makes me sad, because that's all I have is the support. Even to this day, they're 100% behind me. If I book something that they're a fan of, it's always really exciting. I remember when I got ER and my mom flipped out because it was really big back in the time, and George Clooney and all of this cool stuff. Or if there's a fun action movie, my dad will come and visit me on set. So they're amazing parents, and I've been so lucky to have their support, and it helps. This business is very unforgiving in a lot of ways in terms of the rejection and the honesty that you get as an actor. So having that support when you fall down makes a difference.
Well, I have a quote from another actor this time, and it is, "The further you get away from yourself, the more challenging it is. Not to be in your comfort zone is great fun." And this is from none other than Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh, wow.
So do you like playing roles that are sort of your polar opposite? Or maybe you're more of a chameleon, you can be many things, many days, and that's okay, because that's all part of it? Or?
Yeah, I have been lucky that I can be a chameleon. I think I'm more of a character actor, so I don't really fit, I don't think, into any category. And it is a challenge to play somebody that's furthest away from you. And sometimes, most of the time, when you get those sides or you get that audition, you'll run from it. Be like, I can't do that. That's not for me. And they're never gonna pick me. They're never gonna choose me. And then you find a way to do it. You go in and you show them something that they didn't think about, and then you end up getting it. That's happened a lot of the times. And then it does challenge you to go deeper and to get in the mind of somebody else. And I love playing somebody that's so completely opposite of me. But there's always a little part of you, I think, in every character that you portray, because you have to start from somewhere. You have to start from you have to start from your own experiences, and then kind of go from there.
So let's take that. Let's suppose you get a call back for something that you're already maybe nervous about, but of course they love you. Would you then go and maybe start researching people of that type, or would it keep in your mind when you see someone, let's say at the grocery store, similar to that? What's your process?
My process usually is, honestly, once you read an audition, you just kind of get this sort of energy that comes from reading the lines, and then I don't even know what happens. I don't even think you can sort of put a word on it. Just you get this sort of like, okay, that's how I'm going to do it. And then it might be wrong, but you make a choice, and then you go in there, and hopefully they like your choice. And then sometimes you go in there, and they're like, no, we want to see it a completely different way. And then you have to sort of take direction on a dime, because that's also part of the process, I think. They want to see you as the character, but they also want to see how well you can take direction in an instant, because that's what it's like on set. You have to be able to meld yourself, and take direction and go a different way if it's not working.
I know this is like a weird, like creepy question, but are you a people watcher? And I don't mean it in like, I know it could be taken so many ways.
I love people. No.
But in terms of studying human nature and observing people is what I meant.
Yeah, I am an observer. I'm the guy who will be on the wall at a party just kind of watching. I'm not the guy who's like, hey, everybody. No, I watch people. And now, it's tricky when they watch you. So it's kind of an interesting dichotomy. Is that right? Is that the right word? Dichotomy? Sounds right. It sounds right.
It sounds
Use
good.
it. Go
sounds
for it.
Really good.
Yes, but it's interesting when when once fame sort of enters the picture, and then you have people staring at you, and so it makes it interesting.
Right. For the times that maybe you feel like you can blend in more, which probably is not often, but like let's suppose you have a hat on, or you just feel like maybe you're in a space where no one's really too celebrity focused. It's maybe another town or something. What catches your eye about people in terms of character study? Like, is there, because for me, I'll see people at the grocery store, and it'll be the person that's not really that glamorous, but they're just doing their own thing, and
right.
I'm like zeroed in on that person.
Totally. It's the people that have like interesting tics or walks or that have a disability. I'm fascinated by how they operate with life and how they're interacting with people. So I'll really zero in on that because it's something I don't know. But yeah, people do catch my eye, and then I'll try not to stare because it's rude to stare.
Sure.
But I want to know, and a lot of those things I have brought in different characters. I'll see somebody doing it, and I remember it from years ago, and be like, okay, that might work for this. So, observing is key, I think, to acting. Yeah.
And on the flip side, when the eyes are on you, and maybe you're in more of a public setting, how does that feel? Do you ever feel pressure to be superhuman in some ways?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be, well, it depends on where it's at. If you're at an event, where people are there to see you, yes, you're on, and you're present, and it's a beautiful thing. And then sometimes, I will have my hat on somewhere, and I'm completely not even thinking about it, and then somebody will recognize you, or it just catches you off guard, and then you're like, okay, wait, yeah, I am in the public eye. I have to remind myself, because I'll forget. Especially like here in LA, where this is kind of our safe zone as actors in a way. But still, I'll be at the Ralph's, where I'm not. And Ralph's is a local grocery mart in LA. We love it here. But I'll be there not thinking of it, and then somebody will say, hey, or, I'm like, oh, wait, you're right. Because when you go out of LA, that's when people get really, really excited, because they don't see celebrities all the time. It's not in LA, we see everybody, and we sort of like, okay, and this is where they live, and we respect that. But when you go outside of LA, that's when people get really pumped. Not to say that they don't hear, but it's just a different thing.
Right. Just because today we're in this new age of phones, and people get in fights on subways, instead of calling 911,
right.
They just take their phone out. Do you feel any pressure that even if you're just, at Ralph's and you're, looking at the rock stars or the, whatever, the energy drinks or something,
Right.
and then you feel someone's presence, do you feel a little more self-conscious?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It does make you feel self-conscious when someone's sitting there and I always feel it. Whenever I go into some place now, because of being recognizable, I will sort of case the place before. Now I'll go in somewhere, kind of be like, okay, this person will probably recognize me. And then you feel it. I can always feel there'll be like a hush behind me, you know what I mean? People will be talking and you feel this hush and you know that they're saying something about you. And especially now, people can get on their phones and they'll be like, hey, Chad? Your name's Chad, right? And I'll be like, yeah, you got your phone, right? Back in the day, it was like, hey, Jesse, hey, Ash, and I still get that a lot. But now with the phones, people can just go and type your name right away and figure out who you are. On the flip side, I think these are weapons, too. I think we do have to be careful in these times because I've had plenty of people just all of a sudden just do this to me, and I'm like, do you want a photo? Yeah. Well, how about you get in it? And how about I take the photo and we can both be in it? Fame is an interesting thing to watch people's, how they react to it. It's almost like some people can chill and be cool. Some people lose their bodily functions. It's fascinating to watch. And then some people will have a conversation about you and we'll be just as close as we are, and they'll be talking as if you don't exist, like you're an object. It's fascinating. And I really try. I don't take it personally. You know what I mean? I understand that's the inner workings of fame and how it works and celebrity. But a lot of times it can be invasive sometimes, when people, follow you into a restroom or, these things happen.
Yeah.
But 98% of the time it's love, and I feel really, really fortunate to have been in projects that people know and they recognize me, and that's, people are recognizing your work, and that's a great thing.
I know I've heard Mark Maron talk about he could feel the room when he would go up on stage and tell what was going to be sort of a crowd that he would play to and they would love, and then vice versa. And I think I heard Nikki Sixx say the same thing. He was very sensitive to the energy around him. So when you feel that maybe the energy isn't totally friendly, what do? Do you leave?
I leave.
Okay.
I leave. I've been in plenty of situations where people have wanted to fight me because I'm famous, because maybe there were people in the room or a female that got excited and wanted a photo. And I've had several people over the years want to come out and hurt me. And I just very coolly be like, it's not me that you're upset with here. It's whatever you got going on, and it's cool. And then I'll leave. I'll never stick around if somebody wants to challenge me because, hey, Hollywood. I don't put up with it. So, but it happens.
Cool.
I always say fame is a double-edged sword.
Right, and I just have one last question, then we'll move on.
Sure.
'Cause I feel like I'm grilling you.
No, it's all right.
When you felt that changed in your life, because I'm sure there were times when in the beginning you could go places and then maybe people didn't have their agendas, whether it was they were in love with you or they were jealous of you, whatever
Right.
it was. But when you felt it shift, how was that for you?
I remember the moment that shifted, and that was the day after Fast and the Furious came out. My family and I had gone to see it like in a town near Seattle. And we went into the theater, we watched it, and then we came out and I got mauled by people. It was insane, and I was like, whoa, because I didn't expect that movie. My mom asked me if we wanted to have a film premiere of the Fast and the Furious back home, and I go, Mom, no one's ever going to see this film, because I was ignorant, I was very young, and I didn't understand. Again, we go back to being young and sort of having those big hits. You don't realize what you have. And that movie taught me that you never know. And I was so lucky to be a part of this huge phenomenon. And to this day, people recognize Jesse left and right. So I'm really fortunate. And then after I got mauled, I went to another place and got mauled again. And then it just kept happening. And I remember that night, just like it freaked me out so much. And I was kind of like, I was crying. I was like, I was really upset. And my mom was there. And I'm like, things have changed. Things have definitely changed. And it was a tearful joy. But also scary, because it's like, whoa, you feel the shift, and then it hasn't been the same since. And so you kind of learn to adjust, and and again, I'm very thankful for it. But it is it's an interesting position to be in.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't think about that, because we're in such an era of people wanting to be famous,
Right.
whether it's on Tumblr or Instagram, Twitter, whatever. But then there is this double-edged sword. But then the Chad that was the little boy in the second grade, and a
Right.
different Chad than the way maybe the world projects. So it's got to be an interesting thing, because you know yourself as Chad the human, and other
Right.
people see an actor,
Right.
superhuman.
Right,
So
they do. A lot of
handsome,
people see their perception,
Mhm.
what they want to think of you. It's not who I am. It's just what they see and what they want to sort of put into their little box about who you are. And we do that with, I think, a lot of celebrities, but we just truly don't know. My favorite is when somebody says, "Oh, so-and-so's an a-hole." I go, "Really? Have you ever met this person?" We're talking about a celebrity. "Oh, this celebrity is an a-hole." "Really? Have you ever met them?" "No." Then I'm like, then you can never say that about this person. You can't. Because somebody out there is saying that Chad Lindberg's an a-hole because I looked at him a certain way or I didn't hear them. Am I an a-hole? No. So it's interesting when people say that. I just think, unless you know somebody in this business, you don't know them. So.
Sure. Well, I know Mickey Rourke was interviewed, and he said that LA was a town built on envy. And I think that is true in many ways. And
Wow.
so I think sometimes a lot of it comes from that.
Sure.
Because we wish we were there. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you. No, yeah. And I love hearing those stories. I mean, from guys that have been around and doing this for years. I've been doing this a long time, but he's been doing it a long time, and it's interesting to hear similar stories.
Yeah, it was a Piers Morgan interview. It was with Mickey Rourke. It was excellent. I highly recommend
Wow.
it. It's all on YouTube. Okay, cool.
Cool.
So we'll move on from.
Awesome.
Have you always been obsessive about your career?
Right. Yes. I think you need to be somewhat obsessive in a healthy way. You have to have a healthy ego to be in this business. You have to know you're good in order to succeed in this business. If you don't believe that you're good, then you got to go do something else, because you're going to get hit time and time again about how you look. You're this, you're that, you're too old, so you have to have a thick skin. And just actually I was periscoping with somebody in the car before this, and I said I was doing this interview. And this guy goes, "Hey, get me into the business." And I said, "Get yourself into the business," because it's hard work, And he's like, "I want to be an actor." And I said, "Well, unless you are an actor and you are 110%, don't do it, because it's tough." Again, I've had a long, beautiful resume, but it's still hard, even to this day. I have a movie coming out next year, but also I haven't worked in almost a year. So it's like, you have to be able to sustain yourself somehow through this business. And, it's tough. So yeah, you have to be obsessive to a healthy degree, You don't want to be unhealthy, which is the other way around, and tearing yourself down, because as actors, I think we are our own worst enemy. It's much easier to be loving and inviting to somebody else, but how are you towards yourself? And as actors, man, all of our emotions are on the level, on the skin level right here. They're always accessible. So, it's a daily, I think, thing to remind yourself that you gotta love yourself and you gotta push yourself in this business, and don't become complacent.
That's interesting. So with loving yourself, do you find that there are things outside of the business that you can focus on when maybe stuff dries up for a little bit, which I know it happens for every actor,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden all these projects come at the same
Right.
time? So are there other things outside of the business that maybe you can focus on, and then?
Yeah, I say follow your passions no matter where they lead, no matter what they are. I've been acting for a long time. It's who I am. But I also started paranormal investigating, which I do relentlessly. It's also become a religion for me in a way. It's kind of how a spirituality, I should say, not religion. This is something I've been doing for, God, 7 years now. And I go out and paranormal investigate. Now I lead tours myself and sort of help facilitate conversations between the living and the dead. I did a show called Ghost Stalkers where they put me and another guy named John Tenney out into these really haunted places and left us alone overnight by myself. So yeah, and now that's another passion of mine that has helped sort of fill up the times when I'm not working as an actor. I do tons of investigations. I lead people now and take them out to really haunted places, and so it's good fun.
That's interesting. I know with intuition, we all have it, but some people have it more to different degrees, or they can develop it more. Was that something that you always had from the time you were little?
I think so. I've always been a very open person. I had a disease when I was younger called Rye syndrome, and it attacks the immune system. And I remember the doctors basically told my parents he's going to die within a few hours. Go say goodbye. And I was maybe 7, maybe at the time, and I was expected to die. And I think in that period of time, because I was bedridden for about 2 months, 2 weeks in the hospital, I kind of floated in and out of death. Sort of kind of went back and forth. Whether that had something to do with me being open and being able to see ghosts and hear them, I don't know. And then there were other kids in that hospital that died, and I lived. So I don't know if that had anything to do with me being open. Near-death experiences, I do believe, open people up in a way that probably they needed. Something happens like that, we have to look at, like, and I know this is going way off of acting, but
I love it. But
yeah, but it all plays into each other. I think when you have a near-death experience, we need to look at that as an awakening experience, and how can we do that? Use that to awaken.
Being intuitive, I know you probably pick up hits about whether it's a place, whether it's a person. How much do you say? Because sometimes as intuitive people, we have to learn to keep our mouths shut because we know things, or at least we feel we do, but maybe it's not our place to say them.
Right.
In the course of your day-to-day life, because you have this ability, it's one thing if you go into an area, but let's suppose you're in LA. and LA is sometimes not the place to be the most brutally honest.
Right.
But I think as being a person that has sort of somebody that they're answering to, that's maybe or a consciousness about you, maybe I'm not describing it right. When do you filter yourself? Because I know that's a problem with a lot of intuitive people.
I try to filter. I mean, usually something will happen and then I'll be like, well, I dreamt that, or I was thinking about this person, and then you'll get a phone call or something like that. So I think we're all tied in some weird way. And we have to, and again, it ties into acting. We need to pay attention to our intuition. I think a lot of the time that nagging feeling will come up about something and we don't listen to it. Then something happens, and we've been like, we should have listened to that. So yeah, if there's something that I feel like needs to be said, I'll say it. But I think there's a lot of psychics or mediums, or however you want to say it, that put forth that information without being asked, and I don't think that's the right thing. Usually if somebody says, "Oh, I'm a this, I'm a that," I don't think you are. You know what I mean? If you have to tell somebody that you're a this, "Oh, I'm an actor," or "I'm a this, I'm a that." No, I don't know that you are, because if you really are, do you have to say it? You know what I mean? Do you have to validate yourself? I don't know. I feel like you hear that a lot in this town especially.
Sure. I bet that's really interesting then when you're in a scene with someone, because if you, I'm just saying without putting a label on it, just being extra sensitive to energy.
Right.
How is that? That must be amazing, but it could also be interesting if maybe there's friction. How do you deal with that emotions? Because I know a lot of people that are very sensitive. It's a lot of stimuli that comes at them.
Well, when you're acting, I feel like you've got to use whatever stimuli you can grab onto to sort of like get you into a scene. I remember working on Sons of Anarchy, and I had known a couple of the guys on the set, and I did a guest star. And then halfway through the day, I walked over to where they were all kind of hanging out. And I won't mention which one of the guys, but he goes, "Get out of here, this isn't your scene." And I was like, "What?" He's like, get out of here, this isn't your scene. And we were about to do a scene together. And I was like hurt, you know, and like a couple of the other actors, they were like, "Oh, don't worry about it, it's okay. You know, don't take it personally." So I walked away and I was like, you know, and then it got me going, you know, and then I used it in the scene, and then and you get there. So it worked. Not something I would do to another actor. However, you know, it comes out, and sometimes you got to take it there in order to go somewhere else. So yeah, you have to be sensitive to somebody else in the scene that you're acting with, and if it's not going that place, then you need to do something to switch it up. So I was doing a movie called Push years ago, and Chaz Palminteri was in the movie, and in the movie he kind of plays like my father figure. And we all know Chaz Palminteri is a great actor, tall, intimidating man, very, very generous, very nice. So in this scene, I am supposed to come in and tell him that I lost all this money and I need help, and I need him to bail me out of this life or death situation. So I kept coming into the scene, I'm supposed to be crying and this, and I wasn't bringing it, period. I was stinking up the room, and I couldn't get there. And so, all right, maybe, you know, take 5 or whatever. I come in, and I'm like, he goes, "What'd you say?" He grabs me, pulls me to him, and goes, slaps me across the face. Wham! Like this. The whole set, you can hear a pin drop. And I was like, I started crying. He goes, "What'd you say?" He goes, "Come here." And he grabs me again, slaps me again. And the man's got hands, you know. Wham! And I'm like, oh my God. And then I started to cry and started to get into it. And before you know it, I'm like, and cut, director yells, "Cut." He's like, "That's amazing. Thank you so much." And I go outside and I bawl. I cried and I cried and I cried. Because I just got my ass handed to me by a football player in this business, right? And I went inside, and Chaz, he grabbed me and he pulled me in and he gave me a big, huge hug. And he goes, "Don't take it personally, kid." He goes, "De Niro slapped me." And if you go back and you watch, I think it was A Bronx Tale. And in a scene, they're slapping each other, or De Niro slaps them or something like that. And they would keep doing that back and forth until they actually got into the scene. So I felt it was a huge honor that he trusted me enough to slap me. And then he told the story on Conan, because Conan was like, "Do actors get intimidated of you?" And he was like, "Yeah," and he started to tell the story about how he slapped me, and but we got there. So he was sensitive to me, and he was also being very generous in helping me. It wasn't about him. And I think that's something that we need to do as actors, is be generous to the other actor, because if we both need to look good. You know, it's not all about me and my coverage and this and that. No, like, we need to be generous to the other actor. We need to stand there and while they're doing their coverage and give them their lines, because it's the right thing to do.
So it's almost like a rite of passage in some way, like he was like a hazing, you know. Like,
exactly what I felt. It was a graduation almost when I got slapped by Chaz Palminteri. It taught me a lot. It taught me, you know, if it's not going somewhere, switch it up, do something different. I don't think I've slapped anybody. Maybe when I'm like 50, you know what I mean? And the new young guy's coming on and be like, "Yeah, don't take it personally, kid. Palminteri slapped me."
right. And then you can be on Kimmel or whatever
exactly.
and count it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You moved here to Los Angeles in 95?
1996.
96, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Do you think you work harder now than you did in '96, or is it a different type of working at it?
It's a different type of working at it. Like I said, when I first moved here, I had blinders on, and you don't really realize what you're getting into, what this means. And so I worked very hard to break into the business, and I got very lucky that it happened for me at a very early age. You have to work just as hard, if not harder, once you do get some success. I think you have to keep working to hopefully keep that success, although this business is up and down, up and down. It doesn't really seem to be anywhere in between. At least for me, it kind of seems like you have those good years, and then you have years where you don't work, and and you have to write it out. And a lot of actors will ask, what do you suggest? What's your advice? And I said, the persistence is the key. Don't leave. Be the last one standing, I think is what my acting coach said to me. Be the last one standing. So you have to. Don't give up, because if you give up, that might have been the next day where you got that audition that's going to change your life. So if it's who you are, don't give up. You can't. As much as you want to, as much as have many days where I'm like, I just want to say peace out and run and go the other way, but then I would be miserable, because it's who I am. So
I know we talked about this a long time ago in 2012. I think that you'd said that you knew that this was the choice you were going to make, but maybe you could revisit it for us. Do you remember the exact moment where you said, this is what I want? Like, it's not going to be okay if I, this isn't going to work. Why don't I get a job, go back to like a vocational school and try to like get a desk job or something? I mean, when did you know that this was for you?
I knew in high school that's what I wanted to do at a very early age. Nobody was going to tell me differently. And looking back, I don't think I'm not the guy to sit behind a desk at an office. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not who I am. I'm kind of used to the uncertainty now and sort of the crazy off life it is to be an actor. It's not a regular thing. There's no certainty in this business. There's mostly uncertainty. So you kind of have to roll with that.
That's interesting. So being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Exactly. Yeah. It's being comfortable with being uncomfortable, which is pretty much all the time. And then you'll have a couple great months where you work and you go on location. And the last movie I did, went to Bulgaria for a month and a half and got to work with Antonio Banderas and Sir Ben Kingsley. Wow. And it was amazing, And then you come back and it's back to reality, So it's like. It's a very weird business. It changes on a dime, and that's what I love about it. You just never know. Again, you never know.
So when those days come when stuff isn't happening, and believe me, for us, we have them too, even just with our little outlet, where like stuff's just not. The needle isn't moving at all. So what do you do? Because it's easy to get frustrated. I mean, I get frustrated with.
Again, I focus a lot of my attention, especially those days where it's not working out or it's really slow. I will, again, do the paranormal investigating. I take people out and show them. I do a lot of investigations. I've got a couple coming up here in the next couple of weeks, and so I really keep busy doing that because it's, the uncertainty of acting is quite frequent.
I'm just curious, are these crime scenes where this is like maybe for someone who's about to buy a new house and there's been reported that there's a death, or how does this work?
Oh no, I mean, I'll take people out to like really haunted locations. It could be an insane asylum. It could be I'm going to Gettysburg here in about a week. When I filmed Ghost Stalkers, they put us in the craziest locations, prisons, and I would go in by myself. With a camera, much like this, and my sticks, and a handheld camera, and a flashlight, and that's all that I would have as my safety. So I really learned a lot about fear, a whole different kind of fear. But yeah, it could be a number of different kinds of places that are really haunted. I think that ghosts are all around us, spirits are all around us, but we really don't think about it because we think we have to be in a haunted house for this to happen. Well, I think they're everywhere, just like people.
Do you ever, I mean, because most of the time what I've heard is a lot of the spirits aren't unfriendly, but when you've maybe encountered someone that's been in a bad place before they've passed on, does it affect you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. You can walk into one of these places and feel what happened there. Some places make you sick, make you throw up, make your heart race. Yeah, you're dealing with things that we cannot put an answer on. We can't put a label on, It's the supernatural. So, so what was the beginning of the question?
I'm just wondering if sometimes if the energy from someone that's in a lot of pain that hasn't crossed over, maybe they don't fully know that they're dead. You know how
Oh,
they
right.
a lot of spirits.
Right.
Yeah, they don't. Does it ever affect you? Does it ever, because you're absorbing?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it affects me almost every time. And each place can be different in their energy. Sometimes it's a very tame environment, and then you'll go into like an insane asylum, and I'll have a woman laugh in my face that I can't see, and then I jumped like 10 feet back because it knocked the wind out of me. And then I went upstairs to this insane asylum, and I hear this man moaning, and you see me go lockjaw because I just was frozen with fear. And a misconception about ghosts is that if something happens, well, then it's evil, and it's bad. It wants something from me. I felt it touch me. It must be evil, and it's it's usually misconstrued because what happens when a child wants our attention? They pull, they scratch, you know what I mean? So when people get pushed or scratched or pulled, it's just them saying, hey, I'm here. And this is how you're gonna know that I'm here, is by doing something that you're gonna undeniably feel or see. So, and then yes, there are evil spirits, there's bad and good, everything, but just because something happens to us doesn't mean that it's bad necessarily.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How did you know that I mean, because mediumship, is that what we're talking about here, sort of? Being able to hear people that have passed on?
Yeah, I guess not mediumship. I don't know. I don't know what you would call it. I mean, I guess I'm an investigator, investigator of truth. I want to know what's going on because there are so many weird things in this world that we don't give credit to. We walk around like this is normal. I don't think this is normal. I don't think humans are normal. This has been happening for hundreds and hundreds of years, so it must be okay. But I think that we're the aliens walking around with these goofy limbs and like, oh, how are you? How are you? You know what I mean? I think that's crazy. I do. I think that is bizarre in itself. And a lot of people just write it off daily as being normal, when I don't think it is normal. It's a beautiful thing. And I think past that, there are ghosts, there are spirits, there are otherworldly creatures that we just don't give credit to. I think they exist. I've seen a lot of weird things, experienced a lot of weird things that provoke questions. And that's why I do it, because it makes you ask something deeper. When you have an experience, nothing makes you feel more alive when you're dealing with the dead. When you have an experience from a ghost or a spirit or something that has a very serious energy to it, and you feel that you'll never forget it.
Have you had dreams about booking certain roles, or that you weren't going to get them and then it happened?
Occasionally, yeah, I'll have a dream that I get a call from my manager and it's like, oh, you got the part, and sometimes that doesn't happen, and then sometimes it does, because usually I will know, not always, but when I get sides from an audition, I will know, okay, that's something I'm gonna get, or I'm close to getting, or that's in my wheelhouse. So, again, you gotta pay attention to your intuition.
Chad, was there ever a time when you said no to television work?
Yes, there was a time, when I first got here, we had a pager, and I had to pull over to my, call my agent on the phone and find a payphone. And it's just, back in those days, Usually it was like if you were a movie actor, you were a movie actor. And if you were a TV actor, you were a TV actor. And there really wasn't any in between. And there was a time when, again, I was very, very young, and I thought, well, no, I don't want to do television. I don't want to do television. I was getting handed a series, you know. Now I'm like, of course I want to do television. You know, some of the greatest stuff you can see right now is on TV. But now with actors, there's so many mediums with social media. You know, you got YouTube stars, you got Vine stars, you got all of these different people now. But back when I started, there was no internet. You know, it was movies and TV. And I've been really grateful to be able to float back and forth and do film and do television. I think I've been on just about every show that's ever come out, which is cool. And I feel blessed to have be able to do both. But there was a time when I was young when I thought maybe I didn't want to do TV and I just want to do movies, and that's ignorant thinking, young thinking. You know?
Okay, all right. So if you were to hear, let's suppose you were with a group of actors who were maybe early 20s, and you heard them say that, I just only want to do this medium, not that. Would you say anything, or would you just kind of let them develop their own process?
No, I'd say something.
You
and
would?
say you're an idiot. I'm just gonna be honest and say, don't be an idiot. You know. You know, and I have come across actors that say, "Oh, I don't want to do this," or Don't let me hear you complain about working or about being in this business. We are lucky to be in this business and to be working, and nothing irritates me more than when I hear other actors bitching about their work and being on set and bitching about this and bitching about that. Shut your mouth and work. You know, if you want to bitch, take it elsewhere and do that. But don't bring it to set, because we are very lucky to do what we do. And granted, there have been times when I was much younger that I didn't realize what I had. And I didn't have many older actors saying to me, hey, shape up. It's not going to be like this. You know what I mean? And it changed. And now I'm so grateful to work, no matter what it is, TV, film. I mean, something off the internet. So I would say, hey, wise it up, wise up, and be appreciative of the work, because most likely your opportunity is not going to be here tomorrow.
I think for so many people that are young, they don't realize there's so much. I mean, even if it's just the office job, still there's so much opportunity, because the world treats you differently when you're 19 and have come from somewhere else.
Right.
But then after maybe even mid-20s, it just changes, because it's not seen as like the young ingenue.
Right.
So is it a process you think a lot of people, once they stay in this town, they begin to realize and change themselves?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think I call it the LA machine. You cannot, or the Hollywood machine. No one escapes it, no one escapes it. Everybody goes through the same exact thing. It's the same exact story. It's like when we spoke about My Big Break and about, all of us actors living in that one house together. Now it's some other young actors and that are coming to town, and so it's like, everybody has the same story, just tells it differently. Everybody has the same obstacles in this town, maybe just a little bit different, is where, my story was about my looks, and, I wasn't good looking enough, or he's not a leading man, and then I had my buddy who was very, very good looking and getting the complete opposite, where you're too good looking, like, well, what do you guys want, So you put up with a lot of that in this industry, and it's tough. It's tough, No one wants to hear exactly how you look. This industry is very honest, and now at 40 years old, I know who I am. I know where I fit in. I'm okay with playing a computer geek. Whereas before, when I was young, I took it personally. I took it very personally, because in my mind, I thought I was Leonardo DiCaprio. Maybe that was a little bit of a delusion in myself, but that's how I had to see myself in order just to do it. And then I started getting all this computer geek roles, and I'm like, but I'm not that guy. And then over time, I had to realize, well, that's my wheelhouse. And those are the roles that are coming towards my way. And now I embrace everything. You know, it's not about being a leading man and about being this particular actor. It's about being you and being and knowing what you bring to the table and what you're good at. And I feel like I've, after all this time, realized, you know, what I am good at, and looking forward to being challenged now that I'm 40 and grown into myself. I'm looking for that next challenge.
Are you okay with being a sexy paranormal investigator? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that works for me. Yeah.
Okay,
No.
good.
And again, you know, now, you know, when people ask me what I do, I say I'm an actor and I'm a paranormal investigator. This is two things that I take very, very seriously, and it's worked out. It's worked out in both realms. So I feel very fortunate to be where I'm at and to have worked like I have, and like we talked about, it doesn't happen for everybody, and it's scary.
Well, I mean, not everybody has the ability to like themselves or love themselves because of some label, whether it's even true or not, that
Right.
someone else in power has put on them.
Right.
Have you been able to come to that place, and what advice do you have for other people? I mean, just as a woman, I know there's so much pressure, whether it's looks, weight, whether you're married or not.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women don't love themselves, and I'm sure it's interesting to hear that men go through it too.
Yeah.
It's kind of a shocker for me. I didn't
Yeah.
realize it. But how do you come to terms with loving yourself no matter what the label is someone puts on you, even if it's not true, the label they're putting on you?
I think it's tough. I think it's tough. The number one thing, hard thing to do is to love yourself. I think we need to learn at a young age, maybe, you know, we really need to practice at loving ourselves and not, you know, pointing the finger at ourselves and saying, you know, you did this wrong and you did this wrong, because we have plenty of people saying that in this town. So I don't know. I think it's a daily work. Because I have those days where I'm like, you know, you were terrible. And then you have those days where you're like, oh, you were amazing, you know? So it's a daily work, and I think it's not just for women. I think it's for men too. I think we're all insecure in this town to some degree, in a little bit, you know, and it's how do we deal with that? How do we try to fill ourselves up with something positive? So.
I noticed too, it seems like there's either total self-hatred of oneself in this town or total self-love. There's like very little gray area.
Right, it's so true. It is. It is true. There's a lot of self-hatred, or there's a lot of like way too much self-loving going on. You know, and I mean, like, okay, come back down to
Right.
everybody else. Yeah, you're right. There is no in between, and I think if we can find a way to sort of be in that in between and have a healthy ego as well as loving ourselves, I think that's a good combination to have.
When it comes to your acting career, is there anything that you do every day, no matter what? Whether it's look in the mirror and say, I can do this, whether it's have a cup of coffee, what is it that every day you do, no matter what, that helps toward the acting career, not just getting up and being a human, but...
That helps toward the acting career? Well, I think keeping sharp in your mind. I do a lot of like exercises, like for instance, before I did this interview, or you know, before I do an audition, I will go to a magazine or a book and I'll read out loud for like 2 pages, you know, and enunciate every word and push it out, because a lot of the times I was getting stuck in here. You know, when I do an audition or I'm working, or I'll get stuck in here, and I read daily just to like sort of help pronunciate. And I tell other actors it's a great way before auditions to really get that enunciation. It's just to read out loud for, you know, 2 or 3 pages, and you'll feel your mouth getting warmed up, and then you're ready to go. And then you don't have to worry about that, you know, because I would worry about getting stuck, you know, because the fear would get in there or something like that. Or, you know, auditions are frightening. They are terrifying as an actor. I mean, and they're enjoyable too sometimes when they go well.
but they're terrifying, you know. Even still, like before an audition, I'll get sweaty hands and I'll have to like talk myself down, and it's a process, you know. It's not a natural process to go in and to subject yourself to 6 or 7 people in the room, the director, the casting director, the producers, who are all staring at you like, you know, and you have to perform, and you hope it goes well. But it can be very terrifying. So anything that you can do to alleviate that stress, you know, does help. So I'll read and then just get out, take my dog for a walk and you know, hang out with all my friends who I have a great friend base here, which is, I think, is important when you live in LA, to have good friends. Because again, there are a lot of people here that will just want to take and take and take and maybe not appreciate you for who you are. So it's important to have good people around you.
You think being nervous is a good thing? Because I know for me, people always say, "Oh, calm down." But I almost think that shows that you care.
Sure.
That's
no,
good.
I think absolutely. I think if you're not nervous, something's wrong with you. You know, I think you need to go back to the table and assess what's going on with you. If you're not nervous about this audition, you know, then what's going on with you? You should be nervous, you know. I think it does. It absolutely means that you care. You know, you want to put on your best, and you want to do your best, you know. But it's very nerve-wracking, and you know, I get nervous before auditions still. I've been doing this for 22 years, you know, before an event, before I have to get up and talk to, you know, a big crowd. Sure, you know, there's not. Again, I don't think we should be complacent or too relaxed, which is interesting because in our work we have to appear relaxed, you know, but inside just like, oh my God, I'm gonna freak out, you know, because you have a huge director looking at you, or they've brought in their main actor to read with you. You know, you got to put that out of your brain. You know, I remember doing an audition with Brad Pitt for The Mexican. I got close on an audition, and my manager at the time says, "Oh yeah, you're gonna be reading with Brad Pitt," so nonchalantly. I'm like, what? You know, okay, sure, but you have to go in and you have to put that aside. And you know, I got to audition with Brad Pitt and do a scene, and how cool is that? How fun is that? So you never know. There's a lot of fun in auditions, and you get surprises like that sometimes where certain actors, they'll bring them in to read with you. And I didn't end up getting the part, but just being able to go in and read with somebody that you admire, you've won already.
For me, I get nervous and I get clumsy. Were there ever times when you got so nervous, but you had to maybe go for a walk around the block or do something?
Yeah, usually I'll have to, there's an exercise where you just tense up all of your body just before an audition. You know, I'll be in the waiting room. And it's so funny to watch other actors do their thing in the room. You know, I'm not one that's very like, da-da-da-da-da, you got the actors in the room, they're saying their stuff out loud. And I'm like, don't do that. Go outside. Can't stand that. Don't be an actor. Just don't. You know what I mean? Like, preserve it. Go somewhere else. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'll do something where I'll tense up your entire body and then you let it go, and then that'll like sort of relax the body, or you know, whatever you got to do to sort of relieve that stress. And then a lot of the times that nervous energy helps, because you'll get into the room and then that'll just propel you through the scene, and you're like, yeah, I did it. You know, and they're like, oh, that was amazing. And then you can kind of like, okay, you can fall into it a little bit more and trust yourself, which is hard to do.
Do you ever get so nervous that you can't sleep?
Yeah, I'm not a very good sleeper. And that over time here in LA I went from being a really good sleeper to, no, I just don't sleep very well in this town. I don't know that a lot of people do here. I don't know. It's possible, but I think it's a collective sort of energy that this town has, right? It's everybody's trying to like, you know? So I don't have a lot of good friends that I know of that sleep very well, you know? But yeah, I get nervous, especially before an audition the night before, or like a set. If I've got to go to set the next day and work with, you know, a major actor, and I'm terrified of getting steamrolled, you know, It could be very terrifying, absolutely. And then you get on set and it's fine, and you know the other actors are there. But there's always that concern of getting the part. Like, am I going to be good enough? And you have to tell yourself. I have to remind myself, you got the part. You know, something you did worked, because we'll get it. Be like, I don't know what I'm doing. You know, or you know, I've been in that situation. You know, the day of, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And you get there and you meet the other actors and it just falls into place. So, yeah.
But from someone else who has a lot of trouble sleeping, that 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, like the terror that goes
Right,
through
yeah,
your
yeah,
mind.
yeah.
Are anything you do to kind of alleviate that? Because that can be really scary.
Yeah,
Think about all this
yeah.
thing.
Man, just write it out. Write it out until you're able to fall back asleep. But I'm the same way. I wake up at all weird times, and yeah, sleep and me are not friends. But you know, I'm not really a nap taker either. I just can't fall asleep that easily.
Right.
I got so much going on here. But yeah.
Do you read, or do you, like for me, I'll watch videos on computer coding, and it usually puts me to sleep.
I guess that would put anybody to sleep.
Yeah, like learning HTML, like these YouTube videos, and it does help. But like, are there different things that help you?
Wow. No, I guess I should start watching these YouTube videos on different codings and maybe
JavaScript, yeah, it's
that should
fascinating.
Put me to sleep right away.
So,
Yeah.
so you'll just go through it.
I'll just write it
say-
out.
yeah.
Write it out, and you know, hopefully it works out. You know, and then once you get on set, the adrenaline takes over, and then later on, you feel it. You know, you'll be working on something and you do a fight scene. I won't feel anything, and then later that night, you'll go home and you'll be like, "Oh my God, what have I done to myself?" Because in a scene, I don't care. I'll do it. I'll take a hit. I'll do whatever it takes. You know, your adrenaline's going. You don't feel it necessarily until you're taking a shower and you're like, this bruise. Oh, this bruise. Oh, yes. That was from today. So.
What about the paranormal side of you at like 3 in the morning? Because I've heard that that's very like there's like a thin
Like the witching
veil.
hour,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Between.
Yeah, a lot of people say, well, you know, at 3 a.m. this you know, all paranormal things happen. You know why? It's that people say that, or what I think people say is because number one, we're not doing this, right? It's the quiet time, right? We're not so busy thinking about our lives and about this. Usually things are a little still at that time, so we're able to connect with what's going on, maybe. But yes, usually after I do a paranormal event or after I was done filming Ghost Stalkers, I would have a very, very hard time falling asleep. It's like a paranormal PTSD, actually. You know, I would have to really sort of help myself to sleep, which was a very hard process to do because you're dealing with things that are not of this world and energies that we cannot put a label on. And so it definitely plays into it, and sleep. And you know, and I start to, and of course, the dreams after you've been in these places are very, very visceral and very real. A lot of my dreams, actually, I'm in a haunted location. Probably for the last 4 or 5 years, I'm in a haunted location trying to get in or out, trying to help people get in or out. And I don't know what that is.
Is it to help them cross over? I mean, if you really wanted to go.
Maybe that's it. I don't know, but just I'm in a haunted location trying to find my way out or trying to find my way in. So I have no idea what that. I don't dream about acting.
I was just going to ask
I don't
you that.
dream about
You're
acting.
picking up on my next question.
But about ghosts, about I'll go into a location and especially when I was doing the show, and then they'll sort of appear. They'll make themselves. I can see them in my dreams, which is very weird. Like I'll actually see, you know. And I've woke up screaming, you know, a lot, and wake up, and you know, the dishes will be thrown off the cabinets, and I had a nice little scary creature in my house. It was an imp. An imp, it's like a little troll, you know, it's like arms and whatnot. Gosh. Okay, so yeah, I had this little scary little thing creature in my house called an imp. And it was around the time I was shooting the show Ghost Stalkers. And I had come home from doing 3 investigations in 2 weeks, or a week and a half, which is crazy. I came back home, and I'm sitting on the couch with my ex-girlfriend at the time, and all of a sudden, I see this big black dot, sort of like the size of a 50-cent piece, maybe bigger, like this. I saw it sort of go all the way across the back of the couch, right? And my ex is sitting here. I see this ball of black sort of mass come on the back of the couch like this. As soon as I lose sight of it, my ex-girlfriend, she's like this. She picks up on it, sees the thing come down, and all of a sudden it had these long sort of pointy fingers, right? And she saw it manifest from a black ball, and it got into these like long prickly hands, and then I felt my shirt go boop like that. It picked up my shirt, it hopped off the couch, I heard it go boom onto the floor, and it scurried into my room. Insane, and I would see this thing sort of like crawl up the walls at night, and then I had to do this whole thing to try to get it out of the house. But it was interesting because we both saw it, and it manifested into this thing, and it was like it was playing with me. And I felt it pick up the back of my shirt, hop off the couch, and scurry off. They're like little pranksters.
And is it energy from a deceased that's what
An
is
imp? Well, no, I don't think. I think that's one of the otherworldly creatures that we have, the trolls, the fairies, all these little things that sort of inhibit nature, so to speak. And I think once it realized that I can hear, talk to, and I'm in that world, so, you know, especially after I do an event, I am so keen and picked up on every little thing. It really tunes your senses to what's going on. So I was kind of in that world anyway, and sure enough, I mean, this thing ran the back of my couch. It was very intelligent, and we both saw it. So that's one of many things that happens. And my house has been pretty quiet for a while, which has been nice because there are times when my dog doesn't sleep. You know, I have a little dog, Lima, and she's sort of my barometer because she'll look and see something, or she'll back away, or I'll watch her eyes go from one person to another, which is quite insane. But that hasn't happened in a while. Yeah, or I'll hear something scurry along the carpet, and then it'll end up in the kitchen, and you hear the dishes ring. It's crazy, crazy.
Are you able to turn it off?
It's a hard thing to turn off. It's a really hard thing to turn off. I had done an investigation where it was a really not so nice place, and my energy changed right away. I was with a buddy, and I got angry, and I got home, and I was pacing back and forth, and I sort of had attached, or not, I didn't attach, but some spirits had attached themselves to me, followed me back to my place, and they caused havoc in my place for a while. So it was a real process to actually get to sleep at night, knowing that my dog is freaking out, and I had to like hold her close because she's freaking out about what she's seeing, and they're like right there, like just standing right there. You can feel their presence. Or I'll wake up and Lima will be across my chest, and she'll be rigid, and she'll be like that low growl, staring just right to the next to me like this. Things like that happen, but it makes it interesting. I don't really like that stuff in my home, you know what I mean? But it's part of the game. I think if you go out and you open yourself up to some degree, and I feel like I have sort of a fun nature, so these spirits are like, yeah, he's at Disneyland, let's go hang out with him. And then you sort of have to talk them out. You have to say, this is your home. Like if you're at somewhere in a haunted place, you say, this is your home, you have to stay here, you cannot come back home with me.
Right.
And then over time, it'll sort of dissipate, and they'll sort of go wherever they need to go. They'll go back home. Maybe they'll, cross over, which is a question that you asked. do people know, like, do some spirits know that they're dead? And the answer is no. I've been on a device before. It's called a spirit box, and it's a modified radio that scans different radio frequencies, and it causes a white noise for you to be able to talk to spirits in real time. And I said, do you know that you're dead? And then I heard a woman come through. She goes, I am. And the way she said it was so sad, and she had no idea. And so maybe, just maybe, she heard that and was like, oh. And then she went off and joined, you know, on the other side, whatever it is. I have no idea. I would like to think there's something beyond this, or else what the hell?
Yeah.
You know, or else what the hell? I mean, this love has to mean something, and if we can't carry that over somewhere and love the people that we loved on this life, then I love how this is getting so like deep, and you know, that we're going back between acting and this, but I think it all plays into life.
So with your work as a paranormal investigator, do some people have trouble accepting it, believing it? Are they fearful of it?
Yes, I think if somebody says yes to a certain experience that they had, then they have to go in there and reassess everything that they believe, and that can be too scary for people sometimes. I think of it as a gift. I think of it when something happens to me that you can't explain. It's a gift. When I first started doing this, I was at an investigation at the Lindberg Hospital in Los Angeles. It's an old abandoned hospital. Check it out, it's a pretty cool spot. During this investigation, I had asked, and I said, well, what's in this room? And then you hear through the box, it goes, a demon, right? Whether or not that's true or not, who knows? But I went home that night. It was actually the next day, and ex-girlfriend of mine goes, babe, did you get scratched? And I'm like, where is it? She's like, on your neck. And I'm like, yeah, it's been burning, actually. So I went and I looked, and I looked into the mirror, and sure enough, there were 3 scratches on my neck. 2 of them went this way, and then 1 went this way. So whatever scratched me had this weird sort of like effed up claw, right?
Oh my God.
And it was like a hypodermic needle scratch. So I can scratch myself like this all day long. It's not gonna make that thin hypodermic needle sort of scratch. And sure enough, there were 3 of them, and they burned. Unlike anything else, they burned, right? And they stayed there for probably a good 3 or 4 days. And that was sort of the beginning of me. And a lot of people would be like, oh, I'm never doing that again. And I was like, no, I felt like whatever touched me, we connected in some weird way, whatever it was. And that kind of like led me on this whole crusade. And you know, when something happens like that, it makes you ask those deeper questions. Well, what was that? What was it that scratched me? I don't know, but I want to go and try to figure it out.
Do you want to help these entities, or are you just interested in just being present and having them speak to you?
I absolutely go into it with it all depends on your intention. So some people will go in there and puff up their chest and say, I'm gonna kick your ass, come do something to me, you know? And then you might get your ass handed to you in some way. I always go in and say, I'm here out of love and respect. It's your intention. And that not always is going to protect you, but it's your intention. And I feel like they sense that. They know. It's funny, they'll know your name before you walk in somewhere. I feel like, you know, I've said, do you know who I am? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say, Chad, you know, whatever. Did you know we were gonna be here? Yes. Did you have a hand in bringing us here? Yes. So I don't know what it is. You know, possibly, and these are all my sort of speculations and what I've gathered from people that I've worked in this industry, that maybe we have this sort of like this energy that sort of beams out of us, right? And spirits are able to go in there and decode it, sort of like pick out like things that are like, and be able to know things about us that they couldn't possibly know. So it's weird.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, no. I it reminds me of some things I won't go into, but yeah. I've talked to Dave about certain things. It's hard to talk to other people about it though, because people get scared of it.
Well, right, people do get scared of it, and that's okay. It is scary. I mean, before I would go into these places, especially on the show, I'm terrified. I'm absolutely 110% terrified. I would call my mom before I walked in these places, you know, during the show, be like, I love you, you know. I mean, I felt like my life was in danger, you know, because you can't anticipate, you know, what you're coming up against. And maybe that's why I like it, because on set, I know what's coming. I know everybody's lines, you know, but this, it's like, you know, it's completely a whole different kind of fear.
Yeah, that's interesting. That it is such a different thing, because it's totally unexpected. Whereas the set is controlled.
Very controlled.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you might not know where the scene is going or how the acting is going to be, but you know where it's probably going to head and the lines and whatnot. Doing the paranormal, I'll walk in. I don't know what's going to happen, you know, but I know it's going to. I do it because it teaches me something about life and about myself. And again, there's so much weird things in this world that we don't give credit to. Why not go out and explore and try to have a weird experience? I mean, I think we all can sort of go back in our brain and be like, well, there was this one time. You know, everybody's got a story in there. But a lot of people are afraid to acknowledge it because it means they have to sort of go in there and open up a different way.
So to other actors, find that other thing that really moves you that maybe is just like a complete opposite of what the business is?
Absolutely. I think, yes, find something. We have a lot of passions. I don't think, you know, we can just have one passion, you know, and for me, acting definitely is a passion of mine. It's who I am. But I found something that fulfills me just as much in a whole different way and challenges me in a whole different way. So I think, you know, assess what your passions are and go after them, because the acting is not always going to be consistent. I think, you know, anyone here that lives here in this town knows that. So whether, you know, if you're an artist, draw. I mean, do something creative in the meantime, or investigate ghosts like I do and call it good. So.
What is your product or your brand?
Ooh.
What is the brand of Chad Lindberg?
Good question. Well, again, I think these days we're especially able to brand ourselves with, you know, Twitter, Facebook, all of these social media aspects. You know, I guess I don't ever look at myself as a brand, but I guess I am to some degree, because I'm selling myself. In a lot of, you know, I'm Chad Lindberg, and what comes with that, you know, the acting and the paranormal. And, you know, especially these days, it is important, I think, to promote yourself, to use the social media aspect. And my brand is me, Chad Lindberg, whatever that entails that day, you know. Generally, I'm a happy-go-lucky guy, and I love people, and I love interacting with my fans, and I call them friends. Actually, I'm not a big fan. Not a big fan of the word fans. I call them my friends, and you know, a lot of these people I've met through the years through Twitter and all this social media. I've gotten jobs because of social media, because of on Supernatural. They had killed me, spoiler alert, they had killed me on season 2. And then Twitter came along, and I sort of led this revolt on Twitter and said, let's make some noise and get Ash back on the show. And people wrote letters, they made posters, they made videos, and the producers got wind of that and actually had me back on the show. This is kind of like in the beginning of Twitter, so nowadays, like, you know, okay, who cares? You know, but it worked, and it was the power of fans, number one. And the power of the fandom. I mean, the Supernatural fandom is insanely loyal and just awesome, and I'm so blessed to have them. So I guess, you know, I guess the brand is me, whatever Chad is that day, and I try to be honest with people. You know, if I'm not feeling good that day, I'll let people know. I don't like to fake it. You know, I like to sort of let people know exactly what's going on with me. And if I'm not feeling great that day, then probably not a good time to be on social media and to take a break. You know, don't tweet angry. Don't tweet angry.
What are some of the things that you'll say to just let people know, you know what, maybe today's just going to be a quiet day for me?
I just won't say anything. I just won't get on social media. But there are days when I'm feeling awful, and you still have something that you got to promote. So Typically those days I'll just sort of like tweet something and not get on Periscope or anything that people get to see me, and look into my eyes and say, oh, maybe he's not doing too well today. So, I try to keep it honest.
Do you feel pressure to get back to people? Because I know, you want to say thank you, and I think I've seen you a couple times thank people and when I've checked in on your Twitter. So do you feel pressure to make sure that everybody feels heard from?
Not so much. I mean, I get a lot of tweets and a lot of people writing questions or, on Snapchat. And it would be impossible to catch everybody. It's just impossible. But I try, especially on Twitter. I'll spend a good hour sometimes just saying hi to people, and I tell a lot of other actors in this industry, the social media is just as important now as, getting the job. We have to it comes hand in hand, and it does help. It'll help you get back on a show. Or, you've got something coming up and you want everyone to go see it. Well, social media allows people now to catch wind of something that you're doing, or it's really an important tool.
I know you've done a lot of panels or like Comic-Con or different ones. So will you tweet about going somewhere and then you see people show up?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do a lot of supernatural conventions, a lot of conventions in general. Or if I'm doing investigations, I want people to show up, say I'm gonna be here, and then you see those people show up. It's an amazing thing. I love social media. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a, you got your trolls on there and you've got the haters and whatnot. But I always say, if you've got the lovers and the haters, then you're doing something right.
Right.
Yeah.
Chad, do you find that most Hollywood actors are competitive, or actresses?
Yeah, I think this is a very competitive town. And I think we do have a lot of competition out there. But again, I always say this again to other actors that ask me, I say the competition is really with yourself. That's it. You're competing with you. At the end of the day, it's you. Yes, you're going to have actors that you come against, and maybe you're going to lose that role. Well, that role was not meant to be yours. I think a role is so personal that it goes to the person that it's meant to go to. Do I think anybody else could have played Ash on Supernatural? No. You know what I mean? Am I right for this movie that Edward Norton got? No, that's him. It's a very personal thing, a role. So I think that the competition is with you. You need to be able to step up and do it, and believe that you're going to be the one that's going to get the job. And it might not go your way, and it just wasn't meant to be. And that's how I deal with it. It's like, all right, it's not meant to be, so it's not my role. But you have to go through all of those auditions in order to get that one part. And you may know, I know most of the time, I'm probably not going to get this. This is not the guy they're looking for. But you go in and you have to take that step in order to get to the job that you're going to get maybe 5, 6, maybe 10, 20 auditions down the road. You have to do it.
Was this always your mindset, or did it evolve over time?
Yeah, I think it evolved over time. I've been lucky in that my career has gone very step by step by step by step by step. Frustrating at times because I just want to be like, yeah, you go here and life will be great. And I don't think it works that way. I've had friends go from here to here really, really fast, and that messed, with their brain. I think yeah, I've been very lucky in that I've had a slow burn in this business, and that I've worked a lot and have done things that have been very recognizable. So I feel blessed that I've sort of been kept in check along the way and taken those proper steps and been able to have a healthy perspective about it 22 years later. Back when I was younger, it was just like, you're young and you just have no idea. And like I said, I put on the blinders and I just go. Nowadays, you sort of like take off the blinders. You be like, all right, you gotta, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you gotta have a healthy perspective and keep it all in check, because we can, I think lose a little bit of reality when we're, start spending that money that we haven't even got the job yet, or we're, you know what I mean? You just got to keep it in check. And then, and even when you get the job, you just got to keep in check.
Also, too, then you found the love or the love for paranormal investigation was enhanced. Maybe if it had been too many projects all at once, you wouldn't have had time to see that. I don't know.
Right,
I'm
right.
putting words in your mouth. But.
Well, right, yeah. If it happened too fast, then, you know, and you know, again, I did get a lot of big things in the beginning of my career. I don't know. If it happens too fast, I think you could be in a lot of trouble. And everybody's timing is different. You know what I mean? You could be 10 years old and be nominated for for best actor, and that's when your moment arrives. Or you could be 40 and have your moment arrive. Or you can be, you know, like Bryan Cranston, who has been working for years and years and years and years, right? Great actor, not many people really knew who he was, and then he got Malcolm in the Middle, right? And then Breaking Bad came along, and now who doesn't know who Bryan Cranston is? You know, he's an older guy, and he had his moment, you know, his big moment with Breaking Bad. So it's like, you just don't know, you know? And so you just keep plugging away, and you just don't give up, and just keep believing.
How important do you think it is for an actor to know who they are? You talked about turning 40 and feeling like you know who you are, you feel comfortable. Do you think people 40, 50, 60, all of them know that? No. I think we're always learning, and the moment we say we know who we are, then I can probably come tomorrow and be like, I have no idea who I am. I have no idea what's going on, what is happening. Again, I think having a healthy perspective, having good family, you know, or friends, definitely help keep you grounded. Having a dog keeps you know, you need things to keep you grounded. And in this industry, I think you need to know what works for you. You need to know what your wheelhouse is. You know, again, when I first got down here, I was shooting after leading man roles, and I'm gonna be the leading man, and I would get close, but then they wouldn't cast me because I'm not what they were looking for physically. I can give them what they were looking for energy-wise, but not physically. So, you know, it took me a while to be okay with being the geek in these particular roles, or being this guy, and then realizing, you know, I'm in a good spot being where I'm at, because I can go a million different ways. I feel like, you know, I'm not pigeonholed into one particular character or look. So. I mean, that's interesting that you see yourself as a geek, and maybe you don't. I don't see you as that. I see you more as the leading man, and I'm sure there's a lot of women, and probably men too, that would. Do you ever feel pressure? And I think I asked you this earlier, but just to be sort of this guy that's people look up to and that they find attractive. And I'm putting you on the spot.
But
I'm sorry. But do you feel that pressure? Because if someone doesn't see themselves that way, but the outside world maybe does.
Right.
Maybe one casting director here didn't, or this person didn't, but
right.
maybe other people do. Do you ever feel? Isn't it a weird sort of a thing? Because other people see you maybe in a different light.
Right.
That you
and
you
I,
are more the
right.
leading man.
And I appreciate that. Thank
Sure.
you. I feel like
I'm putting you on the spot. Sorry.
Right. No, it's okay. I feel like I grew into myself. You know, when I first got here, I looked like I was 12 and I was 19, and I did fit into more of the geek. And there's nothing wrong. I am a geek at heart. I'm a serious geek at heart, and maybe that's why I play so many, because I am a geek at heart. But yes, there's a lot of pressure in this town, and for years, this industry makes you very aware of how you look, and how you're perceived. And for a while, I was very self-conscious about my chin. And for years, I was always very self-conscious about it, and I could never figure out why. And I would do a profile shot, and I'd be like, oh my God, I was so self-conscious about this, even as a young boy. And then I got to LA, and it was sort of, after going out, and I was sort of in the pinnacle of like trying to find who I was, and it was sort of suggested to me that, well, I remember asking somebody in this business, well, why am I not getting these roles? And they were like, this, and it was like, it was so detrimental to me. I was like, no, it's true. Like, it's true. Okay, it's true. Like, it is my chin, you know? And it was something that just bothered me for years. And it just bothered me. And then I'd stuff it, right? And I was gonna get a chin enhancement. I was gonna get a surgery at the time. And this was like back in the days of Maslin. So it was back in 90-something, 98, 99. And so I had gone and gotten a loan, and I saw this doctor here in Los Angeles, and okay, I was going to do it. I was going to get a chin implant, and here we go. I was going to be taken seriously, and then my friends at the time talked me out of it. And I'm glad I did, and it was something I really, at that time, found out who I was without the chin, without anything, and I really came into my own and felt like, okay, I know who I am. And then over time, I still stuffed that insecurity down, deep down, until it sort of came out one night when we were playing a board game with my family. And something questioned about the looks, and I said something about my chin, and I was really defensive about it. And then my family was like, why don't you just do it? And I'm like, yeah, well, maybe it's okay. Maybe it's okay if this is something I feel like I need to do within myself. So fast forward, however many years ago, I forget, maybe this was like 6-7 years ago, I went home to a family doctor and I got a chin implant, and no one would be able to tell. They just put like a little sort of slit here, and they just kind of slid this little implant here. And then when it was done, I felt like, oh, okay, this is how I felt inside the whole time, but my outer never really fit this way. And then I got the chin implant, I got the surgery done, and it's actually in my Big Break documentary. And from that day on, I've never questioned it. I've never been like, oh, I got a chin. It just felt like, okay, now my face feels like it always should have. And it gave me a confidence inside of myself that wasn't there before. And so I say this because a lot of actors in this town do things to themselves to alter their looks in a certain way, and that's something that's a reality of this business. And more often than not, most people have had something done. And I talk about it, and I'm very honest about it, and it's in the movie, My Big Break, where they actually show the doctor doing the surgery on me and me waking up. And so many people lie about it. And it's their own thing. It's their own, if you don't want to tell people, it's okay. But I wanted to tell people because it's a thing in this industry. And I say, whatever makes you feel better. If it makes you feel better and it helps, your confidence, then go for it. You know what I'm saying? And then there are some people that maybe take it to the hilt and just do way too much because they're trying to feed an insecurity that you cannot fill. You know what I mean? You have to go within. But this was one thing that made me feel like me. So, yeah, I think there is a pressure, absolutely. And it's how you deal with it, and it's how you find yourself. And but at the end of the day, you have to do something for you. And that's why I did it. It was for me. It wasn't for this industry. It was not for acting. I had gotten past that. It wasn't for anybody in this town. It was for me. And once I did it, I felt great, and I haven't really thought about it since. So.
After the surgery, did people treat you differently?
No, which is good. They didn't treat me differently. I maybe treated myself differently. I'm not as, I'm not as self-conscious about my profile. That was something, even as a boy, which at a young age, you really shouldn't have any sort of like perception of your body and be insecure like that. But I remember being very insecure about my profile. And then when it was brought to my attention here in town, I'm like, oh God, it's true. It's all very true. But after doing it, I felt so much better, and I felt more confident in myself, and no one treated me differently, and not many people know, unless they've seen the movie. They'd be like, I couldn't even tell. And I'm like, well, yeah, that was the whole point, and I had a really good doctor who wanted to make it so subtle that it wasn't a thing, And then you wake up and you have that moment where you're like, oh my God, I look different, and you had to go through that whole thing, and then you sort of settle into your new look, so to speak. But I had before and after pictures, and it made a huge difference in sort of, I think, maybe it'll make the difference later on about playing a leading man sort of role. And I'm never going to be the sort of leading man that is. And the great thing these days is leading man has sort of changed into this. It's not, the typical really good-looking guy now. It could be more interesting people, which I think is what people want to see. It's more interesting people, people that they can relate to. But maybe this makes a difference. Maybe it doesn't. But for me, it made a huge difference.
So it sounds like it was more internal then, is really where it made the difference.
Yeah, it was very much internal, and it was something that I had stuffed down, and it would create such an anger inside of me until I heard that it was okay, and it was always okay. My parents and family always supported it, but once they said, "Hey, just do it," I was like, "Oh, yeah, maybe I should," and then I talked to Tony and Elizabeth about it, and they supported it. Again, it's unfortunately the looks department is a bottomless pit here in Los Angeles, and I think if you could sort of keep a middle ground, don't go too crazy, keep who you are, but just maybe do the things that you got to do to make yourself feel better.
Some people have trouble taking compliments, and then some people, they can't take enough compliments about them, and they're busy giving their own compliments about themselves.
Right.
How has that been for you to come into your own, whatever it is, peace that you've come to be with yourself? How is that to accept compliments? Because I'm sure there's people, let's not talk about the trolls, because they always exist for anything.
Right.
But people that do give you genuine compliments, whether it's about your looks, your performance, your ghost hunting.
Right. I think compliments, I don't know. Again, like there are people that just want to hear themselves being adored left and right. And I think they got a real issue. I think they got a problem. And I think that's a scary place to be in. I think if that's the case, you are so insecure and you need to find something inside of you that's real. Because, on the flip side, I think it's hard to take compliments sometimes. I guess it falls back into loving yourself and being okay with taking compliments. And again, I'm always so humbled by compliments, and I take it to heart because it means a lot to me. And these are people that, again, in my lives and these in the friends, like fans, whatever. I feel very lucky to get those compliments, so I take them very seriously and to heart.
When you walk into an audition, what are you telling yourself? Even if you think, I have this idea about who this character is and I don't think I'm going to get it, but I'm going to still show up and try to do what I can.
What do I tell myself?
Yeah, are you giving yourself any kind of a talk, or no, each situation's totally different?
I don't think for me talks really help in that instance. If I have an audition that day, you're thinking, okay, especially if it's at 5 p.m., which I hate later auditions because you have to hold on to that all day. Drives me crazy. I like a good early audition in the morning. Let's get it done, because it's tough. You got to hang on to that all day. I think preparation is key. A talk for me won't do anything because I'm so nervous and I'm like, oh, shut up, Chad. I don't want to hear your bullshit right now. Just go in and do it. And I think you just got to go in there and do it. You got to be prepared. I like to, if I have my sides here, I will memorize the whole entire thing, especially if it's like the next day. And one thing I do to sort of help that, actors, pay attention. It's really a great thing. Every phone now has a voice recorder, right? So I will go and I'll take the sides and I'll read every line. Even if it's not my line, I will read the entire scene out loud at a very monotone voice, and then I'll replay that over and over and over again. And you go in the next day and it'll be memorized. So I think preparation will take away sort of any anxiety that you have. Well, you should be anxious and nervous, but it's going to take away that extra moment of fear, because look, we've all, actors, sometimes we don't prepare as much as we should. We've gone in. We've all been there. We've all been there. And you know, you get called on it. You know, you go in there and you be doing your thing, and you lose your place, and you got to go back. And it's awful, you know, your face turns red, and it's like, and you know that instance, you're like, I'm not getting this just went out the door. So you gotta be prepared, and it's tough to do, because sometimes you'll get an audition for the next day, and you'll get another one, and you'll get another one, you've got 3 the next day, and they're all 15 pages long, and they wanna see every scene, so, you know, you gotta be willing to do that work.
Chad, I know you said that you've made a decision to have your life as an actor and whatever ups and downs that brings, but do you look at your career as a business?
Yes, I do think that it's a business. They call it, was it show business, not show friends? It's a business, and it's a very hard business, but it's very rewarding too if you're able to break in and do some of the great projects that I've done. I feel very lucky. But there is a business that comes with it. You got to make hard decisions. Sometimes you have to part ways with, you know, your agent or your manager or somebody that you've built a relationship with, and you have to move on. And those are the worst conversations to have. They are awful. Especially me, I take everything to heart, and I just don't take any relationship for granted. So yeah, there are hard choices, and it is a business. However, if you can focus on your creativity and remind yourself of why you're doing it and the love that you have for it, the business part's always going to be there, but it won't become, I don't think it should become the main focus. I think we should focus on our creativity, and then, yeah, we gotta play the game too.
Have you ever had a friendship or an acquaintance sour because they felt intimidated? Or maybe they felt like their accomplishments didn't measure up with yours?
Yeah, I've had friends. Yeah, fame is a funny thing that gets sort of in the way of friendships. All the friendships I've had have. You should be happy for your friends, because their success is my success. My success is your success. I'm the same way on Twitter and Instagram. Like, I'll boost up my friends, and hopefully they'll do the same for me. I mean, that's why we're doing this. We have to lift each other up. I've had a friend take his own life because he didn't think he was good enough. It was somebody that I worked with in this town, and it's a reminder of again, where this place can take you if you're not, you know, if you don't reach out and sort of be like, hey, you know, you're not the only one that's feeling this stuff. So I've seen it go tons of different ways. I've seen friends, you know, succeed. I've seen friends move back home. I've seen friends, unfortunately, pass on. And, you know, it happens. You know, it's a really hard industry. And I again, and I'll go back to the guy today who wanted me to get him into the business. Man, you got to be 110% about this business, or don't do it, because it's just so hard. And but if it's who you are, then I can't imagine doing anything else. So then pursue it. If you can't imagine doing anything else, then you should absolutely pursue it and see where it goes. Take a risk. Take a chance. You know, I think that's why we're here on this earth, is to take chances.
What if you learned about making money as an actor? And if that's too personal.
No,
okay,
please. Yeah.
Let me try it again then. What have you learned about making money as an actor, Chad?
That it comes and goes very quickly, too quickly sometimes. The main misconception that people have is that actors are rich, that we live, you know, lavishly, and some do. Some do. You know, I think a very small percentage do. But, you know, for the majority of us working actors, you know, we'll have a little income come in, and then it's gone the next minute. And it's tough, you know, even at this point in my career, it's still hard. And then people are like, oh, you're rich and you're, like, no, I'm not. I'm really not. Again, you know, I'm not season 10 on a series that's been going on for years. You know, I am not so-and-so that's making $20 million a picture. It just doesn't. Picture, what am I, like back in the days now? I'm calling them pictures. That's, I think we should go back to calling them pictures, yeah. But yeah, the most common misconception is that we're rich, and that's just not the case. And I'll find any other way to bring that money in, and thank God there are residuals that keep us alive. And I've found other ways to bring in income, but it's tough, man. And I would say, you know, hang on to your money if you get it. And even I have a problem with that, you know, because there's not a steady job, you know what I mean? So it's like when it comes in, you feel like you got to enjoy it, you know, because you don't know when it's going to come next. And, even at this age, I have to learn to hang on to it, because you just don't know when it's going to, when you're going to get paid again. And it could be, you could get paid very well, or, you know, not get paid. And you got to respect the money. Yeah.
It's funny, if you do a search, a Google search on just any famous person or well-known person, there's like the drop-down suggestions, and so it'll suggest, you know, whether the person's married or not, and then inevitably, like, the third thing is net worth.
Right.
It's just so funny that everybody wants to know it,
Right.
you know.
Right.
Chad, being a person of interest, being a celebrity, whatever label or non-label you want to put on it, there's always going to be people online that are going to say different things. And I have to say that I saw something that said death rumor, and I was like, what? I mean,
yeah.
So how do you handle something like that?
It was a little eerie at first, because a buddy of mine brought it to my attention like a couple years ago, and there's this website that does death rumors, or, you know, their net worth is like $30 million, and that couldn't be further from the truth. And then one was like Chad Lindberg was killed in a car crash or whatever, and I read it, and it felt eerie. I was like, oh my God, you know, I didn't like that feeling at all. It was like, I don't know, it just put that energy into the air, like, I possibly could die, or maybe what is it? You know, it's just a very weird thing. And people like to stir up crap on the internet, and you know, and I don't, to these websites that think it's funny to do this, or if they make money on it, piss off with your death rumors and stuff like that, because people take that seriously. You know, what if my mom or my sister happened to come across that? And even I told them about it, and it wigged them out too. It's like, nah, that's not cool, you know? I don't know why people think it's funny to do something like that, or to spread a rumor online that someone has passed. Someday that's going to be a reality. It's not very funny, you know? I think, you know, again, we're dealing with people that don't have much time on their hands, or these websites that want to benefit off of, you know, celebrity and making up these false rumors. And that's where we get into trouble, you know? I mean, yeah.
Right, well, I've seen it done to a lot of people, and I guess maybe in some ways, if you had to look at it in any way that's positive, well, at least you have a name that people care about. I mean,
right.
you really have.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I guess they are concerned about whether or not I'm alive
right.
or dead, so that's a good thing. And now it's funny, because now I talk to the dead, so, you know, I don't know.
Right, so since you're so close to that world, how was it to see that? Or maybe you weren't doing the investigation.
I was,
or
yeah,
you
at
were.
the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you know, doing the paranormal and experiencing the things that I do really makes you ask those questions, and it makes you realize just how fragile this is. I mean, on a daily basis, I'm just like, you see someone get in an accident, or someone passes away, and you're like, well, why? Why did that have to happen? Why did so-and-so have to pass away? Like, why did so-and-so have to go the way they did? You know, I don't know. So it's a reminder that we should just appreciate every moment that we have because we just don't know.
What's the biggest audition you've ever had?
Wow, the biggest audition I've ever had. Good question. Man, I would say the October Sky audition I had was, you went from the casting director and then the director, and then I got the screen test, which a screen test is always interesting because they put you up in the clothes and the outfits and they actually film you doing this scene. And you've got two other actors that are hoping to get the same part, and they come up and they dress them up, identical to you, and you get really, really close. And so I ended up getting the movie, and it worked out. Then you think about the other two guys that showed up on set and went through the whole rigmarole. You got to sign the paperwork and everything, and it doesn't happen. So you definitely feel the stakes, are pretty high. And then an interesting sort of audition story that I tell a lot. Again, this is something I learned when the Fast and the Furious audition came my way. Again, where I was at that time in my life, I didn't realize what I had. I was off in my own sort of thinking about what I thought about the business. I got the audition, and it was called Redline, actually, at the time. And I remember passing on the audition, and why? Because I just didn't want to. I had in my mind I wanted to do something completely different with my life at the time. Again, maybe 23 years old, So I got the audition, I passed. Got the audition twice, I passed, right? My agent at the time calls me up and says, "What are you doing? Like, you really want to pass on this?" And I said, "Yeah. I was just being a little punk." She's like, "Fine." Hung up the phone on me. I'm like, "Yeah, right. I'm making these decisions." Another agent from the same agency called me up and he said, "Chad, come on, go in, just go in." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll go in." I was being a brat. A brat. And I went and I auditioned, and I met the director, Rob Cohen. He's very friendly and so nice, and the casting director, who I love, and so I auditioned, and they liked what I did, and then they called me back, or they want me to come back and read with a couple of the other actors, and so I'm like, all right. And then you start to sort of play it in your mind. You're like, oh, you like me? Okay, all right, yeah, I'll go back in. Yeah, sure. So I go in and I read with, I think it was Matt Schultz at the time, and Johnny Strong, I believe. And they were trying to fit the guys, because they already had, Paul and Vin and everybody. And I ended up booking this movie. I got the part, and I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And we're gonna do all these cars, and then we got on set, and it became, this crazy thing, and everyone's gonna be like, oh, it's gonna be huge. It's gonna be this big movie. And I'm like, no, I don't think so, guys. I was just so locked into this brain of mine, and then lo and behold, it became a huge phenomenon. It changed my life instantly, and it taught me again that you never know. Don't turn down an audition. Don't be silly, And I was really silly, and I tell this story, and not that I am so appreciative that I went in and I was given that opportunity, and it changed my life forever. So I learned a valuable lesson then. Just keep your mind open, appreciate what you have. If it comes when you're 19, if it comes when you're 40, just appreciate that moment. So,
what were you hoping for at 23? What type of role would you have thought was more? I mean, I realize a lot of actors, they're not maybe at that time, and then they see what it is later. Right. But what kind of?
I guess at that time I wanted to do something edgy and hardcore,
like a David Lynch or something.
Yeah, I just wanted to do something. And maybe it was the computer geek. It was like computer geek Jesse. And it was in my mind maybe I was sort of pushing away those characters because I would just keep getting computer guy, computer this, and it drove me crazy. So maybe that also played a part in it. And I was just sort of like pushing that away. I'm like, no, I'm not that guy. I want to do something crazy and swear and be a crazy, weird guy. And, you know, when it's your part, it's a very personal thing, and it will find you. It will find you. And I'm so lucky that it did, because, again, that movie has now become, you know, they're working on number 8, and it's like, you know, again, people recognize me from it every day, and they tell me how much that movie means to them and how many times they've seen it. And so I'm like, whew. Again, I've been very lucky. So, yeah, you just never know.
Did you ever drive your own white Jetta after that?
No, and they barely let us drive in the movie too, because you just don't give actors cars on set. We got to drive it a little bit, and then they would put us in picture cars, which was great. And the scene where I'm racing Johnny Tran, they had tied up my car. It was a picture car. They tied it up to a semi, and they hauled me like at 70, 80 miles per hour. And then they put an actual car from my eye line racing next to me. So when I'm driving like this, you're actually like racing somebody, not for real, but you know, they're in complete control. Obviously the cameras are on the you know, the bed of the truck and whatnot. So, but yeah, you know, looking back, man, I mean, so cool. Just, you know, I want to do something like that now and have the sort of the greater appreciation and the majestical scope that I have now about this business and what it means. I think that would be a huge thrill, you know, to go back and sort of do something like that has such a, again, you just never know. The movies that you think are going to be huge, no, not so much. And then the movies you think, I don't know, turn out to be phenomenons. So, yeah.
Well, that's the beauty of being 23, is that you don't sometimes realize what's being given, you know, I think.
Right,
older.
There's a beauty to that too, yeah, absolutely. And I had no idea, and that taught me a lot, you know.
So going back to October Sky,
Yeah.
where were you in your life when you had that audition? What was your mindset?
I was barely 21 years old. I had just turned 21. I was in sort of the same mindset. I remember being on set and thinking, I don't know that anyone, and that was, I don't even know it. And I love this interview because it makes me reflect and makes me go back and sort of reappreciate, you know, the things that I've gone through and been through, and that have worked out. You know, it's scary to think, what if it didn't work out? Where would I be? What would I be doing? So I was a fresh 21, and you know, I'm on set with all of these picture cars, and it was in this time period. You know, we're telling this true story about Homer Hickam and the Rocket Boys, and Jake Gyllenhaal was 16, I think, at the time. He was being he had to do school on set, you know, and Willie Scott and I were the two oldest, and again, we had the only thing to do in Tennessee was the 24-hour Walmart.
Oh, nice.
And that's how we kept ourselves busy. And you know, I remember the studio sending us PlayStations, you know, when we first got the part. And we're like these kids, and like, oh, you're sending us like PlayStations, and like all of a sudden you're just being thrown all these opportunities, and it's again, when you're young and you don't realize it, but that was one of the greatest times ever. One of the most pure, just, you know, when you're that age too, you're not really thinking about all of the adult stuff that has to come into play, you know, that we worry about much later on. We're just free and had fun. So, you know, and we just had they just did a Rocket Boys festival that I just attended not too long ago. For its anniversary, I guess 15 years? 15 years. No, wait, that was Fast and the Furious, probably longer. I don't know. Now that all these anniversaries, it just reminds me of how much I've been in this industry. But yeah, it's cool to see where all these projects go and what they become. And
So 40, a young 40.
thank you.
You play a lot younger, but what would you like to see yourself doing?
I would love to play an alien. Much like Starman with Jeff Bridges back in the day,
Oh,
one of my
wow.
all-time favorite movies. I want to play an alien that comes to Earth and then falls in love. That whole typical story that we've seen a million times. But I've always wanted to play an alien. I don't know, I think I would be a really good alien. Yeah, or a monster want to play a villain, but like a famous villain of some sort. I don't know. I want to play an alien. You heard it here first.
Alien, huh? What is it about? Because I could envision you playing something. Well, I mean, it's still supernatural. To some extent. So, but what is it about what was it about Starman?
I don't know. I don't know. I've just loved those movies about an alien, or that movie Powder. I just something, when the character is something supernatural, or I don't know. I've just always loved those alien comes to Earth stories and tries to figure out how to go home and falls in love in the process. And I've always wanted to play an alien.
And persecuted, but really a good guy.
But really a good guy.
People are scared, so xenophobic. They don't know who he is.
Exactly, yeah. But told on a very simple level. I think these days it's like this grandiose CGI and stuff like that. And let's just go back to their relationship and this story. I'm all about the aliens and the ghosts and the weird stuff in this world, and I want to tap into that and play it.
Why do you think you resonate with weirder characters?
Because I'm weird. Because I'm weird. Yeah, I don't know. I always play a little bit left. You know what I mean? I'm always playing off kilter. I have the hardest time playing simple. I have a hard time playing just a regular guy. It's hard for me. I'll go in and try to always make it a little bit more interesting, or I'm just sort of off kilter guy. In a good way. It's kind of what I can bring to the table. If people say Chad Lindberg, well, you can, come in and be weird, do my thing. So maybe that's why I'm always attracted to, I just don't like normal. I don't like normal. I've never been a fan of normal, whatever normal means. I think normal's scary.
But were you always that accepting of the weird label? Because I know in high school, no one wants to get that label.
Right.
Everyone wants to be part of the in-group.
Right.
But then I think as you get older, you realize I kind of have seen the in-group, and that's kind of too boring.
Yeah, the in-group was never something I strived for. In high school, I was cool with everybody because I was the weird guy. I was the weird, funny guy who, everybody just knew could laugh at. I was the guy who was making jokes and got up on stage, and I wanted to entertain people. So I was the go-to weird guy. I still am, but weird in a good sense, not weird like, where are you coming from, dude?
not John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah, exactly. just weird fun.
Right.
Yeah, which yeah.
And being comfortable with that.
Being comfortable with yourself, exactly. I've always been pretty comfortable with me. And I guess that's why I became an actor. It's because I knew I'm weird. I can make this work for me. So here I am.
Chad, we have a quote here from someone, which is an unlikely person to quote for acting, but it's from David Bowie.
Mm-hmm.
And I just found it the other day. I thought it was interesting. And the quote said, as you get older, questions come down to about 2 or 3 things. How long, and what do I do with the time that I have left? And the reason this kind of stuck out to me was I'm just thinking about it in my own life.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering for you, does this bring up anything interesting? Just because, life changes after the 20s, and does this...
Yeah, I just turned 40, and so that question definitely looms. It's like, well, how much longer? How am I going to go? And what more do I have to do here? There's a lot to do. I feel like 40's the new 20, maybe, I don't know. And it makes me reflect on all of my time that I've spent in Los Angeles and pursuing an acting career. And I look back and I'm like, thank God, because when you're young, you don't really realize what you're getting into, and I kind of had my blinders on, and I'm like, well, nothing is going to get here. I'm going to go and do it. And I'm very lucky that it happened, because it doesn't happen for a lot of people. So 22 years in, I'm like, but it's still just as hard as it was.
Okay. Well, I mean, you're an incredibly young 40.
Thank you.
You have
Thank
on your
you.
side, yeah.
Yeah.
But now do you think maybe there'll be new roles? Maybe not Jesse, or maybe Jesse reinvented.
Right.
But now there's a whole new thing open to you as a 40-year-old male.
Right.
Which you could still pass for a way younger, but.
Right. No, I appreciate that. I can't do high school anymore. I'm pushing college. But it definitely worked for me when I was younger. I mean, I played, I was 20 playing 15, so now I can still play 30s. But it definitely lends me to do more interesting roles, I think, now, because I have grown into myself. I know who I am. I'm much more confident in who I am. When you're in that late 20s, 30s, I kind of squandered a bit because I'm like, well, I don't really fit here, and I don't really fit here. So now that I've come into my 40s, I feel very confident about where I'm going. So,
where did you think you didn't fit in? That's interesting, because I don't see you that way, but I'm just curious where, because I could see you fitting into so many roles, but.
Well, I wasn't quite a man, as funny as that sounds. I'm in my 30s, and in my early 30s were a really tough time in this business, because I started out by getting big roles right away. I mean, I started working, my first audition I booked, and my career started kind of like here. And then as I was 30, I kind of had to backtrack a little bit and sort of sort out what a lot of actors go through in the beginning of their careers, trying to get the hustle. And so I kind of had to step back a little bit and reassess everything. So I wasn't quite an older guy, to play this role, and I wasn't quite young enough. I was just kind of interesting enough. My early 30s, it was an awkward stage for me, as weird as that is. So.